While out buying a wall mount for my mother, I'm gonna hang her television. I'm
Mhm,
a good son, you know?
mhm.
I asked the people at Best Buy if they had those little holes that you can put in the wall and then run the wires through. Because 'cause we're not white trash. We're not gonna let the wires hang from the television down to whatever it's gonna be plugged into.
Okay.
And the guy said, "No." And I said, "Okay, all right. Do you think maybe they'd have that over at Best or, over at Target?" And the guy snickered at me. He laughed and said, "You think they'd have something that useful at Target?" And I said, at first, "How dare you?
Yep.
How dare you attack my church?"
Sure, sure.
But then I thought, you know what? I kind of like it. I wouldn't mind a little rivalry here, a little brick and mortar rivalry
Little Crips
where,
First Bloods.
yeah, where the workers of certain stores hate other stores.
Yeah, brand loyalty, or I guess the stores themselves are brands. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
What's funny too is Best Buy pretending they're still useful. Like, I almost, if I go to Best Buy, I'm probably having a bad day. If I got to walk into Best Buy, something's gone terribly wrong.
If I'm going to Best Buy, it is a last second thing where I, didn't have the time to buy it on Amazon Prime. And I know that it's something that is very specific to a television. But otherwise, yes, I'm just going to Target.
And 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. 20 years ago, Best Buy was a spot. You know,
Oh, 20 years ago, I'd go to
2004.
Best Buy first.
I'd be playing Guitar Hero for 2 hours in Best Buy. Place was the
Mhm.
fucking best. It was the tits. And simultaneously with the downfall of DVDs and Blu-rays,
Mhm.
went Best Buy. But on top of that, as we got older and lived in our own apartments and whatnot, Target was just infinitely more useful than Best Buy was.
Target might be the best place on earth. And that's coming from someone who just went to Disney World.
I gotta say too, there's no Walmart really near us, but
Mhm.
Walmart's online store has everything. Really good for TV mounts and shit like what you're looking
Yeah.
for. Walmart's online store is unrivaled.
Although Walmart's online store, I feel like sometimes, or most of the time, is that when you go to order something, they just don't have it. Like they present it to you as like, "Hey, we have all this stuff," and then they
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, notify me when back in stock.
One goo, three, yeah! Goo! Jaws 3! Goo! King of Queens! Goo! Meryl Streep! Entertainment!
I'm Goo,
And I'm Mac.
and we are the Mac and Goo program. We bring you friendship.
And sequels. This
Sequels.
is this is a sequel to our original podcast.
I was just gonna say that. We're kind of a sequel.
Yeah, we used to be Mac and Goo, and now we're Mac
Yeah,
ampersand Goo, or vice versa. I don't know which one we are these
we're
days.
ampersand now.
Okay, all right. And so today we're gonna bring you and maybe you guys can answer this for us. Sequels that ruined the original, or sequels that maybe what are you calling this?
So before we get to that, I did want to ask you, are we on our 9th year of this podcast or our 10th year? What year did we start and how do years work?
2015. We started
Yes.
2015, I'm pretty sure.
October of 2015.
Yeah, I think technically September, I want to say. But we are one of our first episodes, we were discussing who
Our
would you
second
rather
episode.
have,
Go ahead. Yep.
the Cubs young bats or the Mets young pitchers.
Yep. And we threw it away. We said this is terrible.
Because we both agreed on the Cubs. I don't even remember.
I don't even know what we
One
agreed or
side was
disagreed
faking.
on. We
One
just
side
said
was faking it.
we said this thing sucks.
And history went on to show us that maybe neither. Cubs did win a World
Yeah.
Series though. So there's that.
What was the other question? What is this episode?
Yeah, what are you titling this? What are you calling this?
So I guess the first thing I need to ask you, I might call it sequels that tainted the original, but
Okay.
because I want to put
Tainted
the
love.
word taint. Yeah, taint's
Mhm.
pretty fun. I wanted to ask
Tainted
you this
love.
before we get into the question of sequels that ruined the original movie. Do
Okay.
you believe that a sequel can ruin a movie?
It's a hard question to answer. And first of all, this is the topic of discussion because of Joker Folie à Deux,
Mhm.
which I think you can argue did ruin that first movie
So
if you
you
did
do
like
believe
that
it
first
then?
one. Um, I think that there are instances though where first movies can be so good that they're completely unaffected by what comes after them after that.
Yes.
But then I think you can argue that second movies can be so bad that it it unravels everything that the first movie may have done. And that's still maybe not necessarily a knock against the first movie. I don't know. It's a hard question to answer, but I do think in general, yes, a sequel can ruin a first movie.
That's why I think a sequel can taint a first movie. Like if a sequel changes the lore or if it retcons something from the first movie, you then start to say, do I care about that first movie?
Yeah, you start questioning things more and maybe things you forgave in that
Yeah.
movie, the say 2 or 3 years prior. Now you're like, "You know what? I don't like that anymore because of what happens in a future movie." So, yeah, it's hard to keep it a black and white answer. I think it's sort of a case by case basis.
So, Mac, I went through the interwebs and pulled up every bad sequel that is listed as a sequel that either ruined or it's just a bad sequel in general. I put them in alphabetical order. I'm going to ask you if this sequel tainted the first movie. I'm going to just go for the record of the word taint, if
Tainted
you will.
love. I'm just gonna keep singing that the whole episode.
Can I start listing sequels?
Yeah, how many movies do you have here, by the way?
100.
It's like that, Twitter thread that we used to do that no
Yes.
longer is there.
Mac, do you believe that Austin Powers, the spy who shagged me, taints International Man of Mystery by telling us Vanessa was a fembot all along?
Goo,
Yeah.
hear me out on this one.
You think it's
I
better?
think Austin Powers' Spy Who Shagged Me, it's a better movie than
I
International
think
Man
it's
of
better
Mystery.
too, but do you not like when you go back and watch International Man of Mystery, do you then start to look at Vanessa sideways?
No,
Or
because
are you squinting because you're doing something else? Elizabeth
well,
Hurley. Mm,
um, no, because this franchise is a spoof of all those things, so it
yeah.
plays perfectly in this franchise that the character and the love interest they built up the whole first movie ends up being a fembot. It works absolutely perfectly.
How about in Blues Brothers 2000, we find out that the orphanage gets closed anyways?
I don't know if I've ever seen Blues Brothers 2000 Goose, so
May
you
I
tell
recommend
me.
it?
I don't know. Did it ruin the first Blues Brothers?
No. No, because it's legacy sequel. You don't have to see it. Not a
Yeah,
big
true.
deal.
True.
Caddyshack 2. They swapped out Bill Murray for Dan Aykroyd, and they weren't able to get Rodney Dangerfield back. So they brought in, was it Jackie Mason? And they pretty much used the Rodney Dangerfield script. All those jokes were written for Dangerfield, but then Jackie Mason did them.
I will say this. Now, if someone were to say Caddyshack 2 ruins Caddyshack or taints the first Caddyshack, I guess I wouldn't disagree with them. However, I would say that most people don't even acknowledge Caddyshack 2. So it's like it doesn't even exist, and therefore it can't really taint the first movie.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
I think the existence of Caddyshack 2 makes me appreciate Caddyshack 1 more.
I think we're both in agreement here, though. Neither of us
We
think.
said different things.
Well, I'm saying on the first Caddyshack, I think it's vastly overrated when we're talking
No,
like
I love
all-time
Caddyshack.
comedies.
Oh my
Oh,
God,
I
no.
think it's extremely overrated.
No.
It's a good movie, good comedy, vastly overrated when you're talking about all-time comedies.
I had Caddyshack in my top 50 movies of all time.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
You know what's better than Caddyshack?
Don't
Slapshot.
even. No,
Yeah.
no.
Yep.
Should we rank sports movies? Sports comedies. Only sports comedies.
All right, we'll do that next week.
Oh, I just started a list. I was going to start doing it now. Mac, the Die Hard movies, where after the first movie, fucking classic.
Sure is.
Bruce Willis is just a normal, everyday cop, John McClane.
hmm
Then he becomes a superhero. Does that taint Die Hard?
It's hard. It would be hard to say that it didn't because the whole magic of the first one is that John McClane's an everyman and he's just getting
Yeah,
by the skin of his teeth, barely surviving the whole instance.
yeah.
And you would think after that he would just go into retirement and that's that, live a nice happy family man life. and instead they turn him into like a Mission
Rambo.
Impossible type of
Yeah.
character. Yeah, a Rambo type of character, a character that's doing these outlandish things. And don't get me wrong, there were some outlandish things in the first one, but like one instance, one day that one man stepped up and saved his family. After that, like, come on. And not for nothing, like, it's a little more believable, at least in the eyes of the viewer, when it's this larger of life character like a
Mhm.
Stallone or Schwarzenegger. When it's like 5'9" Bruce Willis, it's really hard to believe him as this massive action hero.
What's the taint percentage?
Well, how many diehards do we have now? We have 5.
There's a lot of diehards.
Die Hard with Vengeance was the last one with Justin Long, right? And like maybe
Yeah, then Kevin
2012,
Smith was in one of them too.
something like that. Let's say it taints it by about 25%.
That's a lot of taint. That's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
taint. Dumb and Dumber 2, a legacy comedy. The characters, obviously, they're teetering in the first one of either being likable or being funny, or being likable, hateable, but they're still funny. The second one is so bad. Does it make you question the comedy of the first movie?
It I think a little bit of your point about the legacy sequel kind of applies here. It came so far afterwards that
Mhm.
people don't naturally connect them in the way they would the Austin Powers movies that came
Okay.
3 years apart. However, it does, like, to your point here, it does change the characters because they're kind of lovable idiots in the first one, and they actually end up just being fucking assholes after the second one.
Hateable losers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I want you to do a little digging after this. Do you know that that movie was paid for by like a Ponzi scheme?
Oh, really? Like a
Yeah.
Madoff?
I forget exactly, but it's a pretty good story.
Okay.
So good that I have forgotten most of it. The Friday the 13th horror movies, where you have so many Jason deaths, body changes, they try and change the powers and the lore and make other characters the killers, but it always goes back to Jason. He's a worm at one point, he goes to space. Does all of that make you feel less appreciative, even though he's not in the first movie, but say the second Friday the 13th or the third one when the mask first shows up? Do you question your like of these movies?
So, as iconic as Jason Voorhees is and becomes in that mask and whatnot, I think there's a pretty good argument to be made that there's only one good Friday the 13th movie, the first one, in which he's not even the killer in it. That said, that franchise is defined by like the cheesy goriness and like the over the top shit. So I think they're at that point, they could release any movie and it would fit in with the franchise. So it, yes, you could argue it waters down that first one because that's a legitimately great horror movie. From there on out, they become kind of crazy, stupid slashers, but that's sort of what defines the rest of the movies. So it, on the whole, I don't think it taints the franchise.
Gremlins 2 changes the genre of the film series. Director Joe Dante was given complete control of the sequel after the success of the first one. Mac, do you believe that Gremlins 2 takes the piss out of Gremlins 1?
Yeah, I think there's a perfect example of it because Gremlins 1 isn't quite a kids movie, but
It's
I don't
that
know,
fun horror elements. It's
yeah,
kind of a Christmas movie. There's a
some
lot
heart
going
in
on.
that
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then they take it in a complete different direction
It's a
after that.
spoof.
Yeah. And so I think this is the perfect example of a movie that taints a franchise or taints a first movie because you would expect, I mean, that first one is still a classic, but you would expect the magic of that first one to carry on, and it just doesn't.
But the second one is a classic for a different reason and this is kind of like Joker Folie à Deux. This is the one that I think compares it like the most, where it just changes what it is and says, "Oh, you like the first one? You're a fucking idiot." But this one is like, it's clever in the fact that they said, "Oh, you really like that first movie? This is something that you're not going to like."
That whole audience we roped in with this
Yeah.
instant classic, we're going to say, fuck you, and create something completely different.
Which is kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then I think it's the second one where Toby Hooper then made it a spoof, like the poster is The Breakfast Club, right?
Yeah, no, the second one is very spoofy, but That's different though, because it almost works to a certain degree in the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre. For whatever reason, that's a little different.
We've already spoken about the Friday the 13th franchise. How about Halloween, where I think you have an all-time classic as the first movie, and then just sequel after sequel of new lore. They try and break off of Michael. He dies at the end of H2O. Does he? No, he's actually alive in Resurrection. Do you believe that the Halloween sequels tarnish the first movie?
Yeah, as much as I like the second movie, here so if the second movie I think could have been great if they just never connected Laurie and Michael. If it
Yes.
just stood as its sequel, as he gets away at the end of the first movie, isn't it, and is still terrorizing or getting revenge on
Yeah.
Laurie, it works. But connecting them and making them siblings led the rest of the franchise down this stupid fucking path, leading to these Zoltan type fucking characters. And
Zoltan.
that is a perfect example of a sequel and sequels that
Mhm.
completely taint the franchise. And I mean, it tainted it so much that we've had 2 reboots that have been trying to get rid of those original sequels, and they still haven't been able to do it.
What I also hate too is that you try and watch the original movie, and I think I'm kind of like over this hump now, but watching it with having in the back of your mind that Laurie is related, like it takes a little bit out of it. You like him to
Yeah,
just be the shape, the boogeyman who just came to town, but then you're like, oh, he's stalking his sister.
right, right.
Yeah.
And like that second movie has all the elements to be a great horror movie, and I really enjoy it. I like it
Mhm.
more than most. But them putting that one, like if you just remove that and the movie still existed the way it does without the plot point that they're related,
Yeah.
it's a much better movie.
How about, and we've already mentioned Joker a couple times. It's the reason why we're doing this episode. But Todd Phillips also has done sequels for The Hangover that have been criticized. The second one for being pretty much the same movie as the first one. Maybe it doesn't have the same heart, not as funny. And then the third one is Banana Land.
Yeah, so I guess because of all the money that the first movie made, a sequel was inevitable. But if you look at all those classic 2000s comedies, the only other one that got a sequel was Anchorman, and that sequel wasn't good. Like they all existed and just stayed the way they were. This would be like making a sequel to Step Brothers, if, for instance. Actually, we ended up getting one for Borat too. That
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
work out as either. Um, yeah, it I think it diminishes that first movie because that movie was like a time and place, 2010, a moment that movie really only
2008.
works in that time and place. Oh, I thought Hangover was
Was
2010.
it 9? I think it was 9. Let's split the difference.
Okay. And then that type of comedy just got less and less funny as we went on, and it also spawned a lot of copycats on top of that. Project X is a good example of like a PG-13 or a younger generation hangover type of movie. Yeah, the second one is watchable. The third one is like, what? How did we get
The
here? I don't
second
even
one really
remember
just
what happened.
hammers home the same jokes, though.
Yeah, yeah, it was like, all right, we'll do one last. It's like when you go on a final bachelor party for your one friend that's still unmarried. It's sort of that.
Oh, you like the first one? How about we do that again? And you just mentioned Anchorman. I didn't have it on this list. I didn't think that because it's more of a legacy sequel. It's almost 10 years after the first one.
Yeah,
I would question more like the Ron Burgundy, the character popping up at roasts or having his own podcast as something that it doesn't taint the first movie for me. The first movie is just a classic to me.
no, it still is, and because it is so, that's one of those examples of the first movie is so great. It's going to transcend all the shittiness that's come after it, and there has been a lot of shittiness that character has really run its course and is somehow still popping up. That Ron Burgundy podcast is one of the worst things I've ever
Don't you
listened to.
dare say that. Don't you dare. iHeartRadio, we love you. Mac, have you seen the Highlander movies?
I have not.
Okay, so I have seen parts of the first one, and then during my research, this is the one that pops up as the sequel that really like goes out of its way to be different than the first one and kind of ruins things. Highlander 2: The Quickening, apparently what they do is they now say that the immortals, I'm not really sure what those, I'm blanking a lot on Highlander, but They're actually aliens. That sounds terrible. Remember that first movie? It's not what you thought it was.
Yeah, remember that? That's a little bit of what Halloween does, actually. Yeah, gets it into spiritual shit.
Oh yeah, Halloween 6. He's got the
Yeah,
little triangle on his wrist.
Zoltan.
Zoltan. Indiana Jones, where we do have 3 movies that are pretty consistent, but then once they bring it back on the legacy side of it, it becomes more of a superhero.
I would say that they turned him into a superhero early on. It works. It works. The more you think about it, though, it doesn't. Just don't think about it. They turned Indy into a superhero rather quickly. He does some pretty outlandish things. It is a little bit of a Die Hard situation, except they are just better written movies, I suppose.
I was going to
It
say,
works.
I think that the first 3 or the last 2 sequels that we got, for being how poor they are, it makes me appreciate how the first 3 work so well.
I still haven't seen the 5th one. I just
It's not
have
good.
zero
It
desire
goes
to
back
see
in
it.
time.
And that's because it retcons my favorite of the series, Crystal Skull.
Have you seen Independence Day 2?
No, I have not.
They didn't have Will Smith.
Yeah, that seems like a mistake.
I also did not see this, but the threat in 2 is so much bigger, which then kind of diminishes the threat of 1. But the first movie
I
I haven't seen. Maybe that's the whole thing. Just don't see sequels.
Here's the thing. How could you have a threat bigger than a world-ending threat?
What if there's 2 worlds?
Okay. Parallel universe here.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
We're going to
Sure.
destroy the Earth and the Moon.
And Earth too. Yeah. I mean, if you destroy the Earth, it would destroy the moon because it would lose its orbit.
What if you just destroyed the Moon and then Earth? The tides would all collapse upon each other
Tides. Yep. And we'd get hit by more asteroids and comets and shit.
because the Moon has a laser gun on it that protects us.
The moon serves as a shield for the Earth.
Go on.
The dark side of the moon has thousands of asteroid and comet hits on it.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me that Pink Floyd predicted all of this. All right, Mac. Jaws. Jaws, the first one, 1975, absolute classic. But then and this is actually one of the movies that kind of brought us into where we are now with the sequels. You have a big blockbuster movie. We need to capitalize on this. We need rip-offs and we need sequels. By the end of it, you have a telekinetic shark that is connected to the Brody family. But that does not take away from the magic of the first movie. I look at it as just a standalone. The other movies don't count. It's a different shark. The shark gets blown up at the end of the first one.
I would say that the other movies are so bad in this franchise that it almost makes it its own franchise. You have like Jaws and then the Jaws sequels. They're separate because Jaws is such a significant film in general and for so many people that it would be like impossible to ruin that movie.
I was gonna say too. So Jaws, first one's 1975. I think the final sequel was around like the late 80s, early 90s.
I think it was 89. I want to say.
We haven't gotten any word or attempt of a Jaws remake, which tells you how good the first movie is.
Do you think that there was some temptation to subtitle Deep Blue Sea as a Jaws story?
Jaws with brains.
A shark ate me. A fucking shark ate me.
It's a good impression. I thought Samuel L. Jackson was here. Also, keep in mind that in the second Jaws movie, the mayor is still the mayor.
Yeah, corrupt politics.
I did read a good article earlier that he probably used the events of Jaws 1 to, then trick the people into voting for him again. Like, hey, I handled the shark the first time.
I think he's a rather solid lad these days, but George W. Bush got reelected because of the immediate events following 9/11, and you could argue that's what happens in Jaws.
2 things about George W. Bush. Yeah, we're getting poly-charged here, guys. Number 1, he's a painter. He likes to paint. Number 2, speaking of paint, he paints the black. He threw that fucking ball 60 feet 6 inches.
How many years have you been waiting for that joke?
It just came to me, and I'm really
I'll
excited
tell you,
about it.
I think George W. I got no complaint. We were too young to really have an opinion on politics when we were 12 years old. We were just aware that things were going on. He was not liked very well by many prior to that horrible event, and then he became beloved by many, and then it kind of went back down a little bit.
Shall we talk about Joker really quickly, or just say yay or nay? Because we just talked about Joker 2 weeks ago.
I mean, so for me, someone that was like sort of teetering on the first Joker movie,
Mhm.
which appreciated it for Joaquin Phoenix's performance and the idea of the movie, had it not been attached to DC lore, I think that went all out the window with the second movie, and I think maybe that's why. Like, if I listened to Dork's review as well, and they hated this movie more than I did. You hated this
Yeah.
movie more than I did. The second movie I'm talking about, but I liked the first movie less than all three of you. So I think for me, it made that first one go way down because I was already just like kind of justifying it with Joaquin's performance. Well, the performance still exists in this movie, and this is dog shit. So to me, the whole thing is now dog shit.
Do you think that Todd Phillips did not like the fans of the first movie? Because that's also been talked about now too.
Yeah, that's like a prevailing conspiracy. There's too much at stake and too much money on the line for that to be true.
Mac, let's move on to the Jurassic Park franchise, where you have an absolute classic, a 40-dogger with the first movie, and then every movie you go down, down, a little bit of a bump maybe, and then down, down, down. At the end of Jurassic Park 3, we see dinos leaving the island, but that's not discussed in Jurassic World at all. And then also after the events of, say, Jurassic Park 2, where a T-Rex gets loose in San Diego, why would you then reopen another park 20, 30 years later? Yet we do. Are you able to separate that first Jurassic Park movie from the sequels?
I really enjoyed Jurassic World, and I have to acknowledge the fact that the lore in the Jurassic Park universe is very inconsistent.
Mhm.
And to your point, it's like nothing really makes sense now. We've tried this like 4 times. Why are we still doing this shit with dinosaurs? I do think like if it did exist in the real world, you would see the greed and shit that exists in that universe.
Yeah.
But man, I don't I have a hard time with this one because Jurassic Park is such a classic movie, but I feel like the sequels like definitely bring it down because they're all harkening back to that first one.
Well, they all also get back to the same dinosaurs. Give
Yeah,
us new. How many dinosaurs were there?
great question. Great question.
Maybe do
There's
another
also
one. Do
I
a
think
do
what
a
people
different
fail
dinosaur.
fail to realize is like there's like 2 if not at least 3 distinct eras of dinosaurs that dinosaurs existed thousands and thousands of years apart, and some on-screen dinosaurs we've seen come together never actually existed together on this earth. So there's a lot of inaccuracies in dinosaur
I
movies.
don't even
There are
care about
dinosaurs.
that. But like, just give me
Oh,
give me
I'll
different
just go fuck
dinosaurs.
myself then.
Give me different dinosaurs. There's a lot of dinosaurs to choose from.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just over dinosaurs. I'm over SDA, Sweet Dino Action. It doesn't do it for me anymore.
Mac, the first Lego movie from 2014? Question mark.
Maybe even earlier. Oh, no, it might have been 14, 13 or 14.
Classic, amazing movie. I think it's like
Great movie.
100% on Rotten
I would say
Tomatoes.
a 40 dog movie.
But because of the success of that movie, within 3 or 4 years, we got 4 other Lego movies. Do you believe that the abundance of Lego movies kind of watered down the first one?
In this instance, I don't because Lego has the licenses to so many IPs that they almost had to keep seeing these things through. The Ninjago shit, I don't care about. That was kind of after we had grown up. We didn't really play with Ninjago shit. Like Lego Batman's pretty good. The rewatchability is not great. But like the for example, the Pharrell biopic that comes out this month is a Lego movie. Like I'm still okay with the Lego movies, and I wonder if it's just because I'm still a simp for Lego. I still love
Yeah.
Lego. I know I don't think the Lego sequels have tainted the first movie.
The first Matrix is a groundbreaking movie that blew everyone's mind in 1999. The second one had some pretty good stuff in it, and then third one went to shit, and then we got a legacy sequel later on that was also not very good. Do you believe that the sequels took the piss out of the first one a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. It's got iconic scenes, and it was a pretty groundbreaking movie. I don't think really people are going back to rewatch The Matrix, which you would think people
I
would
think people
for
don't
as
talk about it
significant as it
enough as
was.
being a classic movie. That's my
Yeah,
big issue with it.
it's instant classic, and within 4 or 5 years, a lot of that went away because 4 years later, the 3rd movie had come out, and it was terrible. It's a
Yeah.
really bad movie, and the second one is solid. It's solid. It moves it along. The 3rd one's terrible. So within a 5-year span, you had the highs of all the, of an instant classic and a groundbreaking movie to the depths of Hellboy, where people are like, I think I'm over this Matrix stuff.
Men in Black. At the end of the first Men in Black movie, Tommy Lee Jones was mind wiped and turned into a mailman. And then for the second movie, they brought him back.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. And then Men in Black 3, we find out that Kay was there when Jay's dad died, which was
I thought you
a
meant like
nice little thing.
in the Superman video or in the Lose Yourself video. He was in the back.
Um, the Men in Black sequels aren't good.
Yeah.
I don't think it taints the movie, though. I think because it's such a ridiculous premise, anyways.
Yeah.
I don't think these sequels taint that first one.
Son of the Mask. People point to this as maybe being the worst sequel of all time, starring Jamie Kennedy.
Sure
Do you
does.
believe that that movie taints the first movie at all? Because I do not.
I also don't think Son of the Mask came out in the theaters. I think it was like a straight to DVD movie. I could be wrong about that. So I think there wasn't much fanfare around this, and that first movie, maybe just because of Cameron Diaz's red dress, stays atop. That movie does not get tainted for me.
Let's see if it was a theater release. It was.
Oh, how much did it make?
I did not ask that, so I don't know. I just asked if it was a theater release, and it was 18th, 2005. Bit of a legacy sequel.
2005. I would have
Yeah.
said 2002. Yeah, it is.
It
Son
is,
of
and
a
no, it makes me appreciate how good the first one is. They were able to
First one's
pull that
awesome.
off. Yeah.
Great villain, but again, Cameron Diaz in the red dress that is an all-time memorable movie.
People look at Space Jam: A New Legacy as a cash grab that just threw a bunch of products on the screen and said, "Here you go." I would argue that the first Space Jam does the exact same thing.
Son of the Mask made $60 million on a $100 million budget, so that's pretty bad.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
I have not seen the second Space Jam. I think you could argue it does tarnish the legacy strictly because the classic Space Jam website had to do spacejam.com
Oh, yeah,
/
right.
96.
Yeah.
That really pissed me off.
Mm-hmm. I think people just have an issue with LeBron James.
That's for sure. I actually don't even have an issue with LeBron. I have an issue with touching that. That's another time and place thing. That movie is so 1996. It should have just been left in its own world. Don't make sequels to that.
Speed 2, Cruise Control. And when I watch the first Speed movie, I don't even think about this one.
Yeah, never seen it, never will. The first Speed movie admittedly doesn't hold up well, but it's a 90s classic.
The second Speed's on a boat. It could be anything. It could be a boat. Spider-Man 3. The one thing that I do not care for in this movie is the retconning of Uncle Ben's death. But
That's the
other
one
than
thing?
that, well, no, like when connecting it to the other movies, the Spider-Man 1 and 2, but otherwise, like, I don't think it really tarnishes the other two movies. It tarnishes it as like a trilogy. Like now you don't look at it as a classic trilogy anymore.
That's true.
Otherwise,
it does royally fuck up a beloved character in Venom, so that's definitely goes way down.
At least they're making up for it now.
Venom.
Venom.
It also maybe halted some other plans they were gonna have because they
Spider-Man
had a
4,
Spider-Man 4
yeah.
planned, and that
With
movie
Vulture.
was so bad that they sort of just stopped that, and we did end up with the MCU 5 years later, so maybe that's a good thing. Yeah,
No, I
it
thought
does.
Spider-Man 3 was 2007, wasn't it?
Is it that late? Oh yeah, because
Iron Man was
Spider-Man
2008.
2 is 02. Spider-Man 3 might be 05.
Why am I what year are we in? Talk for a second.
Or no, because Spider-Man's '01, because X-Men is 2000. Spider-Man 2 is '03, I think. And I
Spider-Man
think
3 was 2007.
was it 2007? Holy
Yes,
shit.
that's what Google tells me. Spider-Man
Wow.
2 was 2004, and the first one was
So
2002.
hold on. The first Ghost Rider come out in 2007 as well?
Ghost Rider in the
Yeah.
sky.
I
It's an
I
underrated song.
I'll
Give it
tell
up
you.
for Johnny
Yeah,
Cash.
Spider-Man 3, it does taint that franchise in that first
Okay.
movie. Yeah.
All right. How about this? And don't spend too much time on it. I don't want to talk about your hatred of Ryan Johnson for too long.
Okay.
I want to ask you this. Does the entire trilogy, the entire sequel trilogy, how it came together, how they had two different directors, it's being pulled all over the place, does that taint anything for you Star Wars wise?
You don't wanna talk about the prequels at all?
So people got a new appreciation for the prequels because of how messy this one was.
Yeah, maybe that's true, and the Clone Wars also, helped along
Yeah.
those prequels. Um, to me, as I get older and the more I interact with Star Wars fans and the more Star Wars media I consume, I think Star Wars is best viewed through the a lens like you have to take into consideration the age in which you viewed
Yeah.
these movies because when we saw the prequels we liked them. We were 10, 12, 15. um my dad's age, who grew up loving the original movies, kind of hated them, and I think we're in that cycle now. We saw this sequel trilogy. We kind of hated it. Now
Mhm.
I hated one movie and then as a result, liked the third one so much because it shit on the second one's chest. But that trilogy was a nightmare. So there sort of seems to be this cycle with Star Wars fans where they have these expectations or these feelings towards the franchise that got built up during their childhood,
Yeah.
and you're sort of shooting for unrealistic expectations, which is really unfair to Star Wars. However, it has been such a popular property for so long. It is the way it is. And now they're in this realm where they're making television shows, some of them really bad, some of them fantastic, and it's the same thing. People are loving them and people are hating them. Um I I don't I'm just there's certainly people have Star Wars fatigue. I have Star Wars argument fatigue. Like I'm just
Mhm.
like I'm done arguing Star Wars with people. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Palpatine has returned. The
Somehow.
Terminator movies, T1 and T2, the perfect conclusion at the end of T2, where Judgment Day has been, it's gone, but retconned into it's been delayed. Mm.
This one's tough because the Terminator movies already deal with time travel, so inevitably we were like gonna go down
You're
these
going to
shitty
muddy
timelines.
timelines as you keep
Yeah.
going.
So I don't think it really taints those first couple movies because this seemed inevitable.
I
Now
also only
those
consider
sequel
the first two movies as movies that I'll watch. I don't watch anything after that.
and they are very separate and they came out years and years apart.
Yeah.
But that's when you deal with time travel initially, you know that's gonna be a possibility.
I see a lot of people, and I really liked this movie, but people think that the fourth Toy Story movie kind of taints the end of three, where the end of three, Toy Story 3, by the way, is you give away the toys and you are moving on. Yet you're not moving on. You're then going back to this world and dealing with these same toys, just a different owner.
Yeah, we moved on from the kid that grew up. That makes sense. You know my stance on this. I think Toy Story 3 borderline ruined the franchise. Toy Story 4, I really enjoyed. Gave it a breath of
I'm
fresh
not
air it
saying
needed.
that you can't enjoy the movie, but what I'm saying though is like you're tainting the end of what we just got, the beautiful end of 3.
No, because that would be like saying toys have a finite time of being viable, and that's just not true. How many people
Tell that
these
to my
days are going
Power
back?
Rangers.
That's what I'm saying though. How many times are we going back, or do you see online people finding their toy box from when they're younger and bringing up toys from their childhood.
Mm.
And still invoking those feelings. It's toys exist forever. Uh, and the feelings that young kids have towards toys, like your old toy is my new toy. And that's what this story is doing.
Similar but not to X-Men or to Spider-Man 3 would be the X-Men series, where it seems like there is just such a jumble of great movies, mid movies, and then real shit movies. Do the bad ones taint how you look at the X-Men movies? Also, how like Marvel, the MCU has done a better job with their heroes, that like a more consistent job at least, than say what the X-Men movies did.
I would say that the X-Men movies are by far the biggest roller coaster ride out of all of these, because X2 is phenomenal. The first X-Men movie doesn't hold up that well, but it happened so long ago and it was such an important movie.
Yeah.
You don't even really criticize it too much. X3, not good. I think there's an argument there between X3 and Spider-Man 3, which one's worse, sort of in the same playing field. But then they come out with First Class in Days of Future Past.
The Wolverine movies too, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're right. And like reinvigorate the X-Men franchise and the X-Men movies. But then we come out with Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix and bring it back down to the shit level that it saved it from. And it's like,
Logan too. Logan's great.
The same mistakes. Yep. And then we get Logan. Yeah. Yeah. And Deadpool, Wolverine, and the Deadpool movies. So I guess we're back on the up. It's a hell of a roller coaster.
I also kind of look at how X-Men, the animated series, both the original run and 97, do such a great job with those characters. And then something always feels, not always, but most of the time, like it's missing from the X-Men movies.
Yeah, I a little bit like, so the animated series was also messy as well. So it might just be an X-Men thing that it's just bound to be a messy franchise. I don't know. Yes, Deadpool and Wolverine was an X-Men movie and Logan is an X-Men movie, but the last two we got with full teams were not good. Apocalypse was bad and Dark Phoenix was horrible. So I guess I would say we're still on the down outside of Logan related stuff.
Mac, maybe my most disliked movie of all time would be Zoolander 2. Does Zoolander 2 affect your viewing of the first movie?
I still haven't seen it. I took a stand on this one.
Don't see it. Don't see it. Don't see it.
Still haven't seen it. And legacy sequels are what they are, but this one was like, Zoolander is a fucking stupid premise for a movie, and in parts based off of parts of an SNL sketch. They're lucky it worked the first time. There was no way it was going to work the second time, and it didn't.
Let's get into Mac-Sack. And Mac-Sack could be anything it could be about. Mac, we were discussing Best Buy and Target earlier in the episode. You were targeted on social media.
Sponsored ad. Yeah.
A sponsored ad. Can you can you show the people / tell us what it was?
Well, let me pull it up on my phone. So I'm scrolling through, and don't get me wrong, I might be the one to blame for this. I have a terrible internet search history. I'm just enjoying my morning on Instagram, trying to catch up on shit. And lo and behold, about the fourth post down, I get this from Target, and it says Christmas small striped glass ornament tree, blue threshold. They're telling me this is a Christmas ornament, Goo. I don't know.
I'd be afraid to get that because I might lose it.
I don't know if you've seen an adult video or two, but that looks like something else entirely. And there's no fucking way that when they were designing that ad, there wasn't 2 or 3 people in the room like, do they not see what this is?
It reminds me of
it's a butt plug, guys. It's a butt plug that they're disguising as an ornament.
I'm sitting across from Sue Johansson right now. It reminds me of college days. You order one blow-up doll as a joke, and then suddenly you are just your email and you're
inundated,
and you're inundated with, hey, do you want to buy this sex toy now? And it's like, well, the first one was a joke. It was a joke, guys.
Yeah, but once you click on the targeted ads too, you just get like 1,000 more targeted ads. It's like, fuck, why did I click on that?
Yeah. Did you buy it?
No,
It's
no,
like,
I
yeah,
don't.
I bought 5 different
I might
colors.
never put up a Christmas tree again. If in the
Oh.
future I have a wife and kids and they want to, by all means, I'm over Christmas trees. I'm done with
Let's see,
them.
what is today's date? Today is 2024. It is October. So 2 weeks from Saturday, I'm putting up my Christmas tree.
What is that? November what?
2nd.
A
The
full
spooky
3,
season is
4
over. It
weeks
is now time to get
before
festival.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So, when do you start putting gifts under the tree?
Depends on when I buy them, and it depends on who it's for. If it's for
Mm,
my son, the answer is no, because those are not from me.
yeah.
And then if it's for my wife, I usually hide them as well. It's
Do you just
gifts
keep
that are for my
Raffy's
family.
okay.
So
Do you just keep Raffy's gifts downstairs or up in the
attic.
attic?
Yeah, in the
Okay.
attic.
Yeah, he's too afraid to go up in the attic, that's for sure.
Oh no, he wants to go up there, but it's too big
Oh,
of a
really?
mess. Can't do it.
Oh,
Can't do it.
you should let him go up there, but make it a trap, scare him.
My attic right now is kind of a trap. It's a death trap. There's a lot of stuff up there I need to clean.
Okay.
But the issue now, so I need to, in my apartment, I need to hang 3 ceiling fans, and I also need to clean my attic. The issue is that on the weekends, I watch my son. So I can't
Mhm.
even do this on the weekends. I need to take time off of work and have like the house to myself to do any of this.
Have you considered tying him up just for a little bit? Don't tell Batty about it?
Have you considered buying a cage?
Or, I don't know, have him pretend help you, and it'll occupy you while you're
I
doing
don't
it.
want him near the electrical. Slash, I don't want him near my tools or anything. My
Okay.
tools.
Alright. I'll tell you, you have more electrical skills than I because you dabbled in that field for a little bit. I tried replacing an outlet in my house. Didn't work. I fucked something up.
You turn the
Couldn't figure
power
it.
off first.
I did. Yep. I even have the tester
Did
where
you
you put
flag the wires and what everything was? What was
you
hot?
even
What was
have
neutral?
I even have the tester that goes in the plug, and then you go down to the panel and you figure
Yeah.
out which one it is. So I thought I had got it initially right, and then I wonder if I shorted it out somehow because the wires
Mhm.
might have touched. I also live in an old apartment, not as old as yours,
Is it
so it's
knob and
very
tube?
no, but it's very old wiring. So I wonder
Yeah.
if I maybe fucking broke it inside of the thing. So I don't know. I just once I fucked it up, I took it all out and I was still able to return it to Home Depot. The Home
Home
Depot.
Depot is the best.
Yeah, got my $53 back or whatever the fuck I paid.
But I would love it if the employees of Home Depot hated Lowe's.
I bet they do.
I bet they do, and I hope they do.
You know, and now I'm thinking about it, Target versus Best Buy, red versus blue. You have orange versus blue with Lowe's versus Home of Deep. Opposite colors. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Mac, where can the people find us?
You can find us on Twitter and on Instagram at Mac and Goo Podcast. Every other platform we are Mac ampersand Goo. It's Max just 7 Goo. That includes Facebook, Stitcher, TuneIn, Castbox, Spreaker, Google Play, iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio.
We are on Spotify, but more importantly, we're on Apple Podcasts. Get on there, rate, review, subscribe, 5 stars. If you do that, we'll get you a free Mac and Goo t-shirt from the folks over at Watertown Sportswear. That's Watertown Sportswear on 34 Mount Auburn Street in Watertown. WatertownSportswear.com, expert screen printing and embroidery.
Don't let the A on this Temu Solani jersey throw you off the scent that I am the captain of this podcast.
So you're really the Paul Correa.
Yep, I'm the Paul Correa,
I don't even
who
know
was
if he
also
the
in the
captain.
Mighty Ducks movies.
I'm just
Or
assuming
at least
he was
one
the
of them.
captain. He had to have been the captain, right?
Paul Correa definitely was. And
Yeah.
you don't deserve an A. You're not getting an A.
What do you mean?
You're not getting an A.
Come on.
We'll have to talk about it. I'm not just going to give you an A.
Yeah, but all it is when you're out, I run the ship, which is partially true.
You didn't even put an episode out last week when I
got
was
my
gone.
identity stolen. What the fuck do you want from me? I spent hours on the phone with fucking credit card companies.
I spent hours on the phone with Melissa McCarthy and Jason Bateman. I couldn't
Man,
figure out what was going on.
I have the address, by the way. It's an Alabama address. I'll tell you, if I had less to lose in this world, I'd go down there. I would go down there. I got his email. I don't know if it's a him or a her. I got an email and an address. I sent an email to the email. I said, hey, motherfucker, stop using my information. I have filed fraud alerts with XYZ and with the FTC. No response.
Not to dox the email, but was it Mr. Socko 69?
No, and this is how I know it's a fucking a fucking bullshit artist. It was a Hotmail account.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. Was it spelled Hotmale?
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Words are spelled differently sometimes. They mean different things.
Yes.
Go buy some stuff on TeePublic. Join us next week for a news dump. And then I know you want to see The Wild Robot. And
I'll watch it.
We'll do that. And then there's some other movies I want to talk about. So we'll do that.
All right.
No. Next week is Venom.
Venom.
Last Dance, baby.
Tuesday night screening? I might be working. Fuck.
Hope you aren't.
Yeah, I might be working.
All right. We'll figure it out then. All right.
Yeah.
So Tuesdays are goose days. I abuse kangaroos.
Bye.
Tim Burton.
Please flip the cassette over to side B to continue the adventure.
Now it's time for girls jumping on trampolines.